Hello, today we're going to be taking a look at the brand new beta release for Ableton Live 12.3. This came out on the 1st of September and it's giving us a little bit of an insight into what's going to come in the next update for Ableton 12.3. And as always, this isn't a full release yet, so the release will probably come in around 3 or 4 months. I think it was roughly last time for 12.2. But I wanted to show you through all of my favorite elements of this new update. And the project we're going to be working in is actually one of the upcoming track analysis videos because Ableton 12.3 came out in the middle of me making this remake. So we're going to be looking at this track here, 9 to 5 by Chris Lake and Sammy Vergi. And the actual full track analysis video will come out next week. So make sure you subscribe if you want to be notified of that. Also, a massive thank you to all of you that have helped support the channel because we have just reached 5,000 subscribers. And to thank you all, I'm also planning a little giveaway, which will be coming in the next few weeks. Hit subscribe, make sure you turn on notifications as well so you can get alerted when that happens. Anyway, let's get into 12.3. So the first big feature, of course, is the stem splitter. Now, most other DAWs like FL Studio and Logic Pro have had a stem splitter for a while, so it's nothing new. And if you want to do this in Live 12.3, all you need to do is right-click on a clip like this, for example, and go down to Separate Stems to New Audio Tracks. When you do this, it will bring up this dialog box where you can select vocals, drums, bass, and others. It's very similar to all the other stem splitters that I've used before. It does have this extra option though, and if you've downloaded the beta, you might not see this. You basically need to edit the options text file in the preferences in Ableton, which will be in the release notes down in the description below. But when you do this, you get this choice of high quality or high speed. And this is what I split here, this little snippet from the track breakdown. There's still a little bit to do on this breakdown, but it split those up into these 4 stems here: drums, bass, other, and vocals. Let's just have a quick listen to each of them. And of course there aren't any vocals in this, but it did identify this as a vocal. And what I thought I'd do is split the stems up in the low quality mode, which is the one at the top here. This second group is the high quality Ableton stem splitting mode. And then the bottom group here is actually from Logic, just so we could compare between them. From what I can tell, they're all very, very similar. They might even use the same method to split these stems up. I don't really know how it works too much. Just to show you how similar they are, if I solo the high quality stems of Ableton and the Logic stems, but I invert the phase of the Ableton ones, you'll hear there are slight differences. But there's only tiny differences between those. The one thing I did want to point out in this test though is that I found that in the low quality version, it actually separates the other category a lot better than in the high quality version. Just have a listen to the low quality version here first. Basically all the synth sounds, as you can hear. And when we listen to the high quality version in Ableton, you get this faint drum beat in the background. And when I compared this to the Logic one as well, the Logic one also had a bit of a rough time with this drum beat in the background. Even catching some of the top hits in the synth sound there. Maybe that will be ironed out in the full release, but there is definitely a difference between them. And the thing to point out about the high quality version is it does take a little bit longer. And on my Mac M1 Studio, it took, say, about 2 minutes to go through each stem, whereas the low quality version did it in about 20 or 30 seconds. So it does take a little bit longer. And if you were doing a full track, it would take quite a little bit of time because I only did this short section here. And there is a little warning as well in the release notes for any very old computers. Just be careful of using this mode. But let's move on to the next feature, which is Splice integration. And a lot of these updates you might be familiar with FL Studio. I think they had their Flux. I think it's called Flux. Can't remember what the name of it is, but it has a built-in sample library that you can search for and download samples through. And now Ableton are partnered up with Splice. So when you come over to the library on the left here, in the places, you just have Splice. And it's really interesting because it actually brings up the Splice interface in a really clever way. So you can see you've got all the usual stuff like the home, the library. You can look through all the sounds once you've logged in, of course, that is. For example, let's listen to this drum loop here. And just like with the Ableton loops, if you are playing the project, it will also sync up too. And of course, if we wanted to add this loop in, we just drag and drop it straight in. It'll download the sample and it's already in your project. And the other great thing about this integration though, is that when you drag an audio file into a project like this, it actually saves that audio file into your samples folder, the one up here. So when you're then searching through all of your samples with the different auto-generated tags, it will find all of these Splice drum loops as well, so you don't have to have a specific Splice folder anymore. And that brings us on to this feature here on the home page called Search with Sound. And you can do this in multiple different ways. All I'm going to do though is I'm going to select this part of my track here where I've already got this drum loop. Let's just have a quick listen. And all we have to do is just come over and we can just click on Search with Sound. Essentially, what I think it does is it exports out this section of our project. It has a little bit of an analyze of that audio file, and then it will give you suggestions on what it thinks you could add into this part of your track. Let's just have a quick listen. As you can tell, it seems to be a little bit a hit and miss. From some of the tests I've done, it does work quite well with percussion loops and full drum loops and things like that. But when it comes to the keys of the track, I have just been using this, which, as you'll see in the track analysis video, has a little bit of an interesting key, but it doesn't always necessarily get the key of the song right, which can be a little bit annoying. But you don't have to just use it like this. You can even just drag a clip directly onto that section there, even a MIDI clip, and it will analyze the audio from that MIDI clip and then provide you with, again, more ideas on where to go next, which is amazing, really. It's implemented so well. You know, you don't have to open up another plugin. You can literally just click on Splice. Obviously, you can see it takes a second or two to load, but then you even come back to where you left off if you have your reference at the top here. I honestly love this feature. The search for the sound, a little bit hit and miss, but just the access of jumping in and out of Splice that easily is really, really good. Now, maybe you've been using another DAW like Logic Pro or FL Studio and have thought about moving over to Ableton. Well, I've created a full Live 12 video course where you learn how to create a song from start to finish using Ableton Live 12. This includes MIDI programming, audio editing, a little bit of music theory, a little bit of mixing and mastering as well, so that you can create a full song ready for release. Plus, you get a free 1 hour online one-to-one session with myself, your tutor. You can use that anytime during the course. And as a Modulate Online student, you also get 10% off any of the Ableton versions. And you can check out more details in the link in the description too. So let's move on to some more features, and 12.3 kind of continues on with where 12.2 left off in terms of bouncing to audio. In 12.2, of course, we've got the new bounce to features where you could bounce an audio file to a new track, and they've kind of taken this and kept going with this idea. So the first big thing right now, for example, if we group these two tracks together, we can now bounce this group in place. This will bounce all of the elements inside of the group, but it will also bounce everything with all of its processing, including the return tracks, not only for the group, but all the individual elements as well. Basically taking the exact sound that you can hear and bouncing it to a new track like this. I shouldn't have done it for the whole track. But there we go, we've got that whole group now, our drum groove as audio. As you can see though, it replaces the group with that bounced audio file, which is a little bit annoying because it's always good to keep the original, but they've actually come up with a slightly better way of doing this now. And this is going to really help speed up your workflow if you like to bounce to audio a lot of the time. So what we can do, for example, is we can go into a clip like this and we can either right click or we can use Command C or Control C on Windows. We can copy that MIDI clip. And if we go into an audio track down here, if we now right click, we can see instead of just the regular paste, we get this paste bounced audio. Let's see what it does.
Nope.
Unbelievable. Let's do that with the bass instead. So we copy it, we go to an audio track and we right click and go paste bounced audio. And as you can see, it's just like a bounce to feature. The thing I really like about this though is the speed. So I could select this whole bass section here, Command and C, and then I can go on Max, Command, Option and V to paste, and it will do that bounce, paste, audio, bounce, audio, paste, and now we've got that bounced version. And the other really great thing about this is it also works with groups. So if I just select this empty area in the top group here and do Command C, and then we do Command, Option, V, it does exactly the same thing, and now this is my whole drum group here as a new audio file. And me personally, I much prefer that method because I've always generally got my fingers on Command C and Command V or Command Z a lot of the time. It's a very quick way of being able to bounce things out and not have to re-mute and unmute all those other stuff too. Now for this next feature, I'm going to go back into Splice and I'm just going to find a loop. Let's grab this vocal that I've used a little bit on the channel before. I'm going to drop this into the drum beat that we've got here. I'm also going to put a bit of a reverb on it because it will make this effect a lot more obvious.
This is the part where we say goodbye. This is the part where it ends.
And what we're going to be taking a look at is the new update to the plugin Auto Pan, and now with its new name, Tremolo. They've essentially updated Auto Pan to now have these two different modes, panning mode and tremolo. Panning mode is kind of like the original Auto Pan where it will bounce between the left and the right speakers, and tremolo mode is where you'd set the original phase, I think it was, of the left and the right channels to be the same so that you get a tremolo effect. Let's start with panning.
This is the part where we say goodbye. This is the part where it ends.
And they've got this nice new handy visual meter in the middle here just to show you what's going on in terms of what it's actually doing. We've got a bunch of different waveforms now over here on the left to use. We've got a bunch of different timing values or speeds as you would call it. We've still got the amount in the bottom left hand corner, so let's bring that up a little more and let's bring the frequency up too.
This is the part where we say goodbye. This is the part where it ends. This is the part where we say goodbye. This is the part where it ends.
And the shape here will just change the shape from this kind of sine wave up to more of a square wave.
This is the part where we say goodbye. This is the part where it ends.
This button here will actually turn the panning off and put it into this spin mode where you can see the left and right channels actually have different rates. We've also got an invert button here, so it will invert the left and the right, just changing the direction in which way it's going. And then you've also got a phase for all of them. So if you wanted to start, for example, at center pan like that, then you could do so. One of the more interesting parts is down here in the bottom right hand corner, the attack time and the frequency modulation amount. The attack time will apply this fade in, as you can see, to our panning here. So if I bring this up a little bit more.
This is the part where we say goodbye. This is the part where it ends.
You can hear it gets stronger and stronger as the vocal goes on there. And it basically seems to be using some kind of gate to trigger this. You can see in the first section, it kind of stops halfway through a line.
And this is the part where we say goodbye.
Like that.
And this is the part where it ends.
So it does seem a little bit random in terms of when it's re-triggering on this vocal. But if you did have like a synthesizer and it was just kind of playing on and off, then it would work a lot better just because you've got a very clear gate on and off. But it'd be nice to see if there was a way we could control that gate level, especially for vocals like this. It needs to be a little bit lower so it doesn't re-trigger all of the time. And then the dynamic frequency modulation amount will change the rate of your panning based on the volume, I think it is. It seems to be on the volume of the signal. So if I turn this up a bit.
And this is the part where we say goodbye. And this is the part where it ends. And this is the part where we say goodbye. And this is the part where it ends.
At the louder parts in the vocal, the speed of the auto pan is increasing. Think of it as like an envelope follower that's attached to the rate of the panning, and it does it really smoothly as well, which does actually sound quite nice.
And this is the part where we say goodbye. And this is the part where it ends.
And of course we can go into negative modulation, so it does the opposite. Instead of increasing when the volume goes up, the speed will decrease. And this does bring us on to the tremolo mode. In the original auto pan, you could basically turn the phase down so that the left and the right channels would just move up and down together in sync with each other and create a tremolo effect. But now they've got a dedicated setting to it, which is really nice. Again, we've got some of the same controls. We've got the rates, we've got different rate modes, the amount. The shape is a bit more interesting because it'll blend between all of these different shapes. You can see we've kind of got the square wave down to our sine wave, triangle wave, across to our saw, and then we've even got this nice exponential curve here, which we'll do a little bit of a demo of in a minute. We've got an invert button as well, which will invert that shape too. We've got a phase start position over here as well, but there are two additional switches that have been added. These two here, the one on the left here changes the tremolo to be split into two frequency bands, and from the release notes I think it said it was from say 20 hertz up to 600 hertz, and then from 600 hertz all the way up for the remainder of the frequencies. And it's quite difficult to hear. It kind of sounds like the tremolo is being turned off. If I just turn this up to 16 notes, let's say,
and this is the part where we say goodbye.
That's what it sounds like normally. And then with this on,
and this is the part where we say goodbye. And this is the part where it ends.
you get this kind of extra wobble in there, which sounds a lot like a filter, and that's because it's basically what it's doing. And to show you how this works, I've just switched over to this other sound in the build up to the drop, which sounds like this. What I'm going to do is use Vision 4X, this spectrogram, and you'll be able to see what's going on a little bit more. So in our regular mode, you'll see these lines all the way throughout the frequency spectrum. Let me make it a bit stronger. And those lines are where the volume is basically dipping. The brighter sections are louder, the darker sections are quiet. So you can see that's the tremolo coming in, coming out, coming in, coming out. But look what happens when we turn that mode on. You'll see if I put a line on the top half here, it doesn't now line up with the bottom half over here. The top half fades in terms of its volume, and then it fades out. And at the same time, the lower frequencies fade out and fade back in, basically the opposite of each other. So you get this kind of shift in high frequencies to low, which is why it sounds a little bit like a filter. And to quote the actual release notes, this is called harmonic mode, and it modulates the signal level across fixed frequency bands in an alternating pattern, creating a dense, lush tremolo effect. I don't know when I'd necessarily use this apart from just experimenting, but it's quite an interesting feature. But that's what it does. It splits everything above 600 hertz and everything below 600 hertz and alternates between them with the tremolo. And then finally, we have this mode over here. This is kind of like an analog mode, basically. Just gives it a little bit of extra warmth and analog character. I've noticed this the most when using the tremolo in this kind of shape like this. It just sounds a little bit darker. It's something to do with a non-linear curve that it uses to create this. Let's just change the shape a little bit more here. And it sounds really, really good. It sounds really clean and snappy. This tremolo is super useful for that stutter house effect, of course. I'm just going to shorten these chords here, just so we can look at the attack again, because it does work exactly the same way in the tremolo here. And this kind of effect you can create in a synthesizer and most samplers as well. But sometimes it can be a little bit fiddly and you can't get the exact right effect like this tremolo effect. So this is going to be very useful. You don't even need to automate it anymore if you wanted it to come in as it does here. We can just use the attack. And it's one of those things where I don't use AutoPan too much, but it is a nice update and a slowly updating all of the old plugins. And it's just kind of bring us on to one of the last features, which isn't as creative as some of the other options, but it is very useful for those who are really into their mixing. Now in this new update, all of the Ableton plugins will now come with a compare mode. So you'll have an A and a B setting, and you can basically jump back and forth between the two. You get this in a lot of third-party plugins, synthesizers, so that you can kind of bounce back and forth between two different settings. But it's really, really easy to use. If you've got a plugin selected like this, you can just press P on the keyboard and it will swap. As you'll see, the little B will appear in the top there. You can jump back between two different settings. So if you were trying out something completely different, then we could say, well, this sounds good, but let's swap over to B and let's just give, I don't know, let's change the rate to 12th notes and let's change the shape a little bit. And press P again, and now we're back. Now, I don't think there is a way to automate this. I couldn't work it out when I was trying it out before, but it's something that is more useful really when it comes to mixing. Just as an example here, if you were using an EQ, let's say you were trying to EQ this bass to fit with your drums a little bit better. Let's say you like this setting but wanted to try out a slightly different way of doing things, we can just hit that P button. And even if I've completely messed everything up, I can just hit P again. And just compare, jump back and forth between the two. Not super creative, but it's very useful for mix downs and comparing between different settings on a plugin. Now there are some other features and bug fixes, but these are the ones that really caught my attention, the ones that seem the most useful to me. But for all the other stuff, you can check out the release notes in the description below. I think the stem splitter, the Splice integration, and the copy bounced audio are probably my favorite parts of this. They just seem the most useful in my workflow. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like button. It really does help the channel, and subscribe if you want more tutorials like this. Plus make sure to subscribe and hit the notifications icon if you want to be notified when this 9 to 5 track analysis video comes out next week. If you've not seen those track analysis videos, we basically break down the whole song. I recreate all the individual parts, we talk about them, and plus you get some free presets and samples from my recreation too. Plus also make sure to look out for our 5,000 subscriber giveaway, which will come up in the next few weeks or so. And let me know your thoughts and comments about the 12.3 update in the comments section below. But thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.